Hi everyone, it's Chris and welcome back to another video. Thank you very much for joining me today, and if you're new to the channel, welcome. It's lovely to have you along and hopefully I can earn your subscription. And if you're a regular to the channel, well, welcome back. It's lovely to see you again and thank you for continued support. Today I'm going to continue my series of favourite 5 where I share my favourite 5 albums and my favourite 5 tracks by any one band. Today's choice is German band Tangerine Dream. I think they were based in Berlin, absolute pioneers of electronic music, often put into the category of Berlin School, Komische, ambient, space rock, art rock, all kinds of categories, but absolute pioneers of electronic music. Now, because they're an electronic band and pretty much vocal free, they produced and have produced shed loads of albums, and so it's quite hard to choose maybe the top 5 because I only possess stuff from the 1970s on vinyl. And so, spoiler alert, my favourite 5 tracks are coming from the 1970s. It was easier to choose the albums it was than choose the tracks. It was quite hard to choose the 5 tracks, but hopefully what we've got here is a way of starting a conversation about this hugely influential band Tangerine Dream. So at number 5 in the albums, I've gone for Rubicon from 1975 on Virgin Records. This is quite eerie and quite dark album. It's got 2 tracks, Rubicon Part 1, Rubicon Part 2, and it builds on an album that came out a year or so before this called Phaedra, which is often seen as one of the most influential, and is one of the most influential and groundbreaking electronic albums. And I think this is just as groundbreaking. It's a really good ambient album. It's eerie and dark, it ebbs and flows, but it's a really interesting listen. Sort of stuff you have on in the background rather than sit down and absolutely listen to it. At number 4, this is from 1979 and a quite different Tangerine Dream. This is Force Majeure, sadly not on clear vinyl, and you can get a copy of this on clear. This has got a drum monitor called Klaus Krieger, and consequently I think the album sounds quite different to previous stuff in that it sounds a bit more sort of space rocky almost. And the other thing that stands out in this album, despite the fact that they are mainly a kind of keyboard orientated band, is you've got some guitar on here from Edgar Froese, the only constant member of Tangerine Dream, and he's a half decent guitarist. And yeah, so it does sound a lot kind of different to the other stuff and a bit more space rocky, and that's my number 4 in the list of albums. At number 3 is a nostalgic pick, and it's I don't usually include live albums in my favourite 5, but I'm going to go with a live album with this band simply because you can't really tell other than a bit of applause that it is live. It's Encore from 1977. This is the first album I ever bought by Tangerine Dream. Classic lineup of Edgar Froese, Chris Franke, Peter Baumann. It's got 4 songs, 1 on each side of vinyl, and each of them are 16 minutes plus. Each one is like a mini symphony, and as I said, this is a nostalgic pick for me because it's the first album I ever bought by them in the late 70s, and that's at number 3. At number 2, I've gone with 1976 Stratosphere, the last album to have that classic lineup of Franke, Baumann, Froese, and we've got the addition of guitars and harpsichord and piano in here, and what we've ended up with is a great album, and it's quite hypnotic in places. It's quite trancey, but I really love it, and that's my second favourite Tangerine Dream album. So my favourite one by them is another live album, and I am bending the rules for Tangerine Dream on choosing live albums or not choosing live albums, because you can't really tell, other than a bit of polite applause at the end of a track, you can't really tell it's live, and there are always new songs that they have on these live albums. So my favourite album by them is 1975's Ricochet. This is chock full of pulsing experimentation. 2 tracks, Ricochet Part 1, Ricochet Part 2. It's energetic, and despite the fact that the instruments they use on this are probably, relative to modern day standards, quite primitive, I think it's quite a timeless sounding album. In places, it's beautifully melodic, and that's my favourite Tangerine Dream album. So what are my favourite tracks by them? So at number 5, I've gone with a track from this album, a nostalgic pick. Now, in 1977, I bought a 45 by Tangerine Dream, if you can imagine a single by them, and it was kind of a little kind of upbeat, up-tempo, melodic, little short instrumental. And that's an extract from the second side of this album, Monolite, which has a slow, dark start and then goes into the upbeat part, which formed the single Encore from 77, and then it goes back into this hypnotic repetitive rhythm, and it's my favourite song from that album and my fifth favourite song by Tangerine Dream. At number 4, I've gone with a little bit more palatable at 7 minutes 21, Cloudburst Flight, with its acoustic start and virtuoso guitar stuff from Edgar Froese. Opens up side 2, and that's my fourth favourite song by, or track by Tangerine Dream. At number 3, I've gone with a track from this album. Madrigal Meridian is the track. The album is called Cyclone from 78, again on Virgin. It's a 20-minute track, Madrigal Meridian. It's got this pulsing rhythm to it, and it's up tempo for at least 15 minutes of that 20, and it has a more sedate end with a bit of flute and clavinet and so on. But this is an album that divided opinion at the time, because side 1's got some vocals on it, and it by a guy called Steve Jolliffe, I think was an English fella. And it gives it a kind of almost Pink Floydy kind of sound, but Magical Meridian, the side 2, is wholly instrumental and is a great track, and that's my third favourite song by them. My second favourite song by them is the title track from my second favourite album, Stratosphere. A little bit more palatable at 10 minutes rather than 20 minutes of Magical Meridian, but 10 minutes worth of beautiful melody, hypnotic. It's got this acoustic end, but it's a beautiful song. I love it. Title track from Stratosphere. Great stuff. And my favourite song by them is from my favourite album by them, and it's a track from Ricochet. So this is 1975's my favourite album by them, and it's Ricochet Part 2. Has a beautiful gentle piano start, and then it goes into this intense pulsing sequence of rhythm. It's beautifully melodic. It's got this great rhythm to it, and then it generally just fades out at the end, and you can hear this polite applause because it's a live album, but it's a beautiful track, and that's my favourite track by Tangerine Dream. So what are your favourite 5 albums and your favourite 5 tracks by this particular band? A hugely influential electronic band from Germany. Thank you very much, folks. I'm sure I'll be back sometime soon with another video. Cheers.